Radio Cosmik, Radio Cosmik, Radio Cosmik.
The sound of small birds chirping drifted in along with the cold air arriving on a current from an open window. It still felt very much like being in the heart of a long winter that had to be passed through to reach a return of natural warmth. I was lying in bed listening to the sounds of the world, which sounded absent of any human noise, and tried to remember how I had found myself in this place. I noticed the walls were thick wooden beams that creaked in the gaps of the cold air moving through. I got up to look out the window and expected to see the churning waves of the ocean, but instead saw a long green valley of pine trees being silently sprinkled with falling snow. I opened the wooden door to step outside and instantly felt how cold it was, with my breath forming an evaporating cloud in front of me. I shivered in the realization I was only wearing a jumper, trousers and socks. The earth was damp from the snow that was slowly forming in patches, but I walked out a few feet to take in the vast view of the green, brown and white landscape that filled in a plunging V to the horizon. I couldn't see any other buildings, and the silence began to disturb me. But there were bird sounds and the low wind that convinced me, along with my damp feet, that I wasn't dreaming or dead. I watched a lone figure appear along a sloping path, dressed in green and white camouflage, who was winding his way upwards towards the lodge I had awoken in. He had a rifle with a telescopic sight hung from his shoulder, and I thought he was the image of a hunter but was carrying no game. He slowly and steadily made his way towards me, and I didn't move as I waited. I was sure he had seen me, and I thought I must have some explanation. Would it have made more sense to make a mad dash and run and hide, or go back inside the building I had awoken in? I felt no sense of threat, only a calm curiosity. When the figure came into level view, perhaps some 20 feet away, he loosened the white hood to reveal a bearded face that locked his eyes on me. I returned the gaze and didn't move. Neither of us nodded our heads or smiled in some signal of friendliness to a stranger. I merely waited for his approach and wondered what he would do or say, as if I wasn't really in my body but watching a scene play out. He stopped a few feet away from me and took off black leather gloves to expose his hands. He rubbed them together and blew on them as he tucked his gloves away. He held up his right hand with his fingers spread apart and said, "How?" I mirrored the signal and said, "How?" "Let's go inside and light the fire," he said, and cracked a minor smile. "You'll need to dry your socks." The hunter placed his weapon by the door and pulled off his white layer of clothes to reveal his practical brown garments, and quickly relit the fire in the small fireplace that had been smouldering and was almost extinguished. He pulled off his boots and placed them in front of the flame's heat, and pulled out a small silver flask to take a quick swig and offered it to me. I nodded and accepted a drink, to find a burning, spicy taste of brandy wake me up. I remember Emily was showing me her memories somehow, and then I found myself here. I offered to break the ice and see what was returned, wondering who might be perceived to be mad. "Yes, she brought you here. You don't remember more?" he asked with a slight accent I couldn't identify. "No, that's all." "It's to be expected. Don't worry. We get warm and talk. Call me Mama Jack. Tell me, do you remember The Simpsons?" "The cartoon?" I replied in confusion, as it was the least expected thing I imagined the rugged face of the stranger to say in that moment. "Yes, the cartoon of the yellow people. You remember them?" "Yes." Do you remember how many fingers they had? I don't know, 3 or 4? I tried to recall what they had looked like, but felt lost as I was still taking in my new surroundings. 4. They had 4. And why was that? Do you know? He looked at me and didn't blink until I responded. I don't know, is it easier to draw? Yes. But that is not why. You see this? He held up his 5 fingers spread out for me to see. We have 5. It is a hint, a clue, information for us to notice, to discover about our reality. We live in a 3D world. We do not perceive the other dimensions, but they exist. We perceive we can move in 3D, but we are also aware that there is space and time. So we know there are more dimensions. We have 5 fingers because our consciousness exists in the 5th dimension and streams into this realm. You understand? I think so, but what does a cartoon have to do with this? The cartoon tells us that the images we are looking at on a TV exist on a 2D plane, but the creator of the image, the cartoonist, exists in the 3D world and is created from the 4th dimension where his imagination resides. So the characters have 4 fingers. It is a joke, yes. A hint, yes. You understand? When I saw you, I showed you my hand. You count 5 fingers, yes? Yes. I nodded again at his insistence. This is how Indians, native people, would greet one another. They would show they are human. They would say, how, and display 5 fingers. That they were alike, that they were not ancient ones from before the flood. They were not the descendants of Nephilim with 6 fingers. Do you understand? I understand I have 5 fingers and you have 5 fingers, but I'm not sure about anything else. I replied and laughed. He got up to set a cooking pot over the open fire and began busying himself with vegetables and meat that had been laid aside. It is okay, we eat, gather our strength. We will make sense of things, more things will come to light in the darkness, Mama Jack said as he looked out the window on the last glimmers of the setting sun that was rapidly bringing the daylight to an end. My wet socks gradually steamed themselves dry in front of the fire as the stew slowly cooked, and I felt myself happily go into a warm trance as I watched the licking flames of the open fire. The heat was like a cozy drug helping me to forget any confusion or worry. I felt an immense relief that I wasn't trapped outside in the wild landscape, and easily put aside the part of my monkey mind that wanted to speculate. I remembered I had drank from Mama Jack's silver flask and did fleetingly consider the brandy tasted of spice so strongly because it was infused with unknown botanicals. But truly all I wanted in the world was to close my eyes and return to sleep. Perhaps I would dream again of that girl looking out on an island in the sea. Mama Jack quietly went about the lodge, taking things out of cupboards and putting other things away, locking wooden shutters on the windows, lighting candles and moving books and papers about on a small writing desk, and tidying away other documents and maps from a long wooden table so we had free space to eat. He intermittently tasted the stew before sprinkling more unknown herbs and spices into the frothing liquid before declaring it cooked and ready to serve. We silently ate at the table. The warm mix of meat and vegetables felt like it triggered my memory of having a body again. A warm feeling of sustenance flowed through me. I felt instantly relieved and then immediately far more heavy with the feeling of a physical world again. I thought I had been out of my head or above it, and could sense the trickling electrical current of my mind begin to spin like a generator formulating opinions, thoughts and ideas about this new situation, while my body suggested the best thing to do for the evening would be to doze away. I hadn't really noticed how quiet it was until Mama Jack began rooting in a large cupboard that folded out into sections. It looked like a 19th century oak writing desk that had been adapted to hide all his equipment or make it more discreet. He was fiddling with wires and plugging in all his technological gear that was a sudden reminder of the modern age appearing like a lair on top of this rural hideaway that could have been built long ago for hunters in the valley. Mama Jack finally pulled headphones on and began twirling dials through all the invisible frequencies. He patiently moved his attention through the noise in search of something unknown to me. He held up a finger to his lips to suggest I didn't speak when he noticed I was watching his activities. Finally, he unplugged the headphones and plugged in a small speaker so I could hear what he was listening for. It was a strange collage of sounds that hinted at something meaningful becoming comprehensible if one strained the attention of their mind. We listened for several minutes before Mama Jack turned down the volume again. "Are you into ham radio?" I asked as I observed the stranger's face lost in an intense concentration that made him look slightly angry. I thought I had to say something to break the moment open. "Yes, I can broadcast, but if I broadcast, everyone will know where we are. And I cannot allow that now. We wait here until tomorrow and then descend into the hidden valley where there will not be any reception of any frequency. We maintain this lodge as a bridge between their world and ours. I scan in between everything. You understand?" "Somewhere between the long wave and the short wave lies Radio Cosmik," I joked to myself. "You have listened to Radio Cosmik?" Usually lying on the bath, there's some weird piece of music I've never heard before, like Albert Eiler or the Steve Brown Band. "Yes, this is synchronicity, yes.